Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. How are you? Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. As you can see, I'm not by myself. Today, I have a dear friend with me. Her name is Minister Tiffany Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Tiffany.
It's so good to be here. I mean, we've been doing this for several years now, and so I love Joy. She has been more. We started out as just Facebook friends, but she has been so much more than that. I look up to her a lot, and she has, even if it's through like sending something through the mail or whatever, she has really been a genuine friend and sister to me, especially in this season. So shout out to Joy.
No, shout out to you because I've enjoyed every minute of our journey, and it's crazy because we've never met like face to
Right.
face.
Face to face.
I know, but it's so wonderful to be here. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Danny, welcome to the show. Hey, Tanya, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Hello, April. Eileen, it's great that you are here. DK, thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Personal growth now. You know what, Mike? You were so great last night on Tanya's live. So there was this live that we had last night and Mike showed up like nobody's business with the word and reaffirming people and encouraging because, a lot of what we face when people have dealt with narcissistic abuse is really, it really feels like soul murder. It feels like because it hits you from the depths of your soul and it's hard to explain to somebody who has not experienced it what exactly it is that you've been through, and then we're scared to speak up because there's so many questions about like why did you stay and why did you do this. But it's so refreshing and it's awesome that we I started this channel and I just thought, oh, you know what, I'm just going to get on here and whatever happens because I needed that for my healing journey. It
Yes.
was therapeutic for me. But then look what happened. God had another plan and I was able to make wonderful connections. And now I'm able to share this with you and have you here because you've also been very instrumental in my own journey. I don't know if you're really aware of this, but it's so beautiful to be able to watch somebody say this is my story and this is what I faced and this is what I endured and these are the hardships. But I'm not going to allow that to bury me. The pain may bury me, but being buried is not necessarily a bad thing because it's that covering that we get. It's like we're a seed that becomes planted, and in that darkness there is sorrow, there's sadness, there's loneliness, but there is growth
Yes.
in that isolation. And so I've had the pleasure to sit back and watch you grow, literally soar like an eagle. And so, I get a chance now we're face to face to tell you thank you for not allowing, your past to define who you are, who you belong to, but you literally took it as a stepping stone and began to move forward. So it's easy for me to sit here and say all these things because I know you, but and I could go through your bio because I know it that well, but I would rather allow you the opportunity to start speaking and just let everybody know a little bit about who Tiffany Michelle is.
So, Tiffany Michelle, I am, it's always kind of like, spotlight when someone asks you to, say something about yourself. I'm so like, if you ask me about my work, I can tell you about my work. But it's something about like when somebody asks me about myself, and I'm just kind of like, deer in headlights. But more than anything, most of you all know that I'm a survivor of domestic violence. But more than that, I'm a mother, entrepreneur, minister, and I'm a community engagement specialist. So I work in police community relations. I do so many things. Hopefully, not hopefully, but maybe one day soon I will finish my books. I have
Listen, you've been on this book for a minute. Like,
on
hello.
the shelf, and it's that's a whole whole other topic, but we're getting close. So yeah, I'm just I just love to be an inspiration to others, and just a listening ear, just giving my experience and perspective on things. I've been in radio, I've done TV, I've done a lot of things, but more than anything, I'm a really down to earth, woman who just has a lot of experience, and I love to share that.
Well, thank you for being here and for being willing to share your experience with this community of people who are in various stages of healing. Some are still in the thick of it. Some are yet to leave. Some have left. Some are, actually thriving and soaring right now. But we're all at different stages, but we all started somewhere. Do you mind if you would take us back into, let's just say, when you were in your situation, what was that defining moment for you that said, I've had enough?
Um, when I was in a domestic violence situation, it's the the point when I had enough was when I heard a police officer say, "If we have to continue coming out here, we may need to look into removing the children because it's unhealthy for them." And that was it for me. It wasn't the violence toward me. It wasn't the verbal abuse. It wasn't the emotional abuse. It wasn't the financial abuse. It wasn't any of those things. It was saying, when I heard a police officer say, "If we have to come again, we're going to take the kids." And I did not want my children to go into foster care. I didn't want them to, I didn't want anyone else raising my children for me because I wasn't able to make a sound decision because I'm trying to stay in this marriage that's riddled with violence, abuse, and yeah. So that was it for me.
How old were your children at that time, and how many children?
Oh, I had five at the time. The youngest was one. So one probably 2.5, 3, and then 7.
The twins are seven. We're seven.
But no, the twins were 2.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right. How old were you?
26.
Still very
I
young.
was 26. Still very young. 26 years old.
Now,
So it's been 11 years now.
and I know, time, they say time heals all wounds. I don't know if that's really the case. More so, I think, it's what we do with the
Hmm.
time that helps us as we go about our journey of recovering. But when it came to your situation, to your story, like when you walk away, because walking away, first of all, it's one of the most dangerous times for the person who is leaving. And so,
Yes.
we encourage people to have an exit plan and to have, materials and stuff that they need to help them as they leave the situation. But what was it for you? Like, did you have help? Did you have a support system? How were you able to?
I did have an exit excuse me. I did not have an exit plan. Um, tried to figure out how I would be able to leave without the children. And this is one of the things that I've shared before, that probably will make, some people cringe or whatever the case may be, but I had to get out first. I had to leave my children because of how it ended. I had to leave my children with in the care of the father, um, at that time. And then when I, applied for an EPO, was able to get custody of the children from the EPO, or with the EPO. So once the sheriff served him, I was able to take custody of the children. But it took it was probably like a day and a half that I didn't have not have my children, or our, but that was how things played out. And I knew, like, unless we were to leave while he was at work or something like that. And then, because of our living situation, I didn't feel like I had to leave. So the house that we were renting was my mother's house.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I didn't feel like I had to leave, and I knew I didn't have to leave. But in order to,
Move things
have
along.
him home, so we had to have an EPO to have him removed from the house.
What does
But
the
the
EPO stand for?
emergency protective order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's an emergency protective order, and then there's a domestic violence order. So the emergency protective order is granted like immediately. The sheriff serves it, but then after that, there are court proceedings that happen to, move it into a domestic violence order, which you can say contact, no violent contact. Um, you know, this person's not to come into so many feet of you, whatever. Sometimes there's even child support, even in the domestic violence order. It's a lot more detailed than the EPO, but you actually will have to go to court for a domestic violence order. The EPO, you can, you file for it. It's an emergency basis, and it's usually granted as long as there are threats of violence or history of violence.
That's good to know. Thank you for, clarifying that. A lot of times we find that the abuser does not respect these orders. They don't respect restraining orders, EPOs, domestic violence. They don't care about any of that. And I think also it angers them, so they lash out. Did you experience any retaliation?
Hmm. Yes. So there were times that this was before I had my locks changed and things like that. But there were times that I would come home and like all the TVs were unplugged, or um, a big a big place of contention was church for us. Um, he did not want to not go to the church that we went to, so I conceded and moved my membership to another church. So I had to drive to Georgetown, Kentucky, and I began going to my aunt and uncle's church. And the judge, I would, that this was something that we even discussed in court. And Judge Philpott, he told my ex, he said there are like 700 and something churches in Lexington. Pick another one, like, but he just would not. So I did not feel, because domestic violence is already a touchy subject when you're dealing with other outside people who don't believe you. Because I went through that as well. I went through folks not believing what happened, or not believing that the
Yeah.
violence was as bad as it was, and because they didn't see it, so they didn't believe it, um, or they saw who he was in church, and they just did not believe it. So we, I went to a different church. Trying to think if there was anything else. Um, there wasn't any other retaliation outside of like the words that were said in court, because I just tried to protect my space. I, you know.
Yeah. And it's so, you raise such a great point, because a lot of the times the predator, because that's what they are,
Hmm.
these predators, they go about grooming not just their targets, not just the victims, those that they'll inflict this abuse on, but they go ahead and they groom everybody else prior to you even catching a clue that there is a problem, because
Hmm.
sometimes they're really patient and they pace themselves real slowly. And in the while you think that, you're wondering, why are these people acting funny around me, whenever I go around his family or wherever, that's because they've already started telling people things about you, so that when things really hit the fan and you are now, sharing your story and speaking out, it's like impossible. There is no way. He's already painted the picture, and so it's difficult, because the moment you start opening your mouth, sometimes they can fall back and say, I told you, I knew she was going to do this. You would never believe what I have to live with. Meanwhile, they're the monster behind closed doors.
Yes, but there were several times where there were physical altercations that happened in public and in church.
Oh,
So um, yeah, so there, I can remember a time um, there was a physical altercation, and it was during a convocation. So it was like a large meeting at our national campus.
mhm.
And it was off in an area where, wasn't too much foot traffic or anything like that, but there were two pastors that saw what happened and did absolutely nothing. So yeah. So
It's
that's why
difficult.
calling the police because someone violated a domestic violence order when you've already experienced violence and there was nothing that anyone did about it. It's disheartening and it doesn't make you feel safe. And it just, so I didn't feel comfortable even calling the police or alerting someone, hey, he isn't supposed to be here. But I honestly believe that churches need to do a better job of that, of making church or religious institutions, whatever, a safe place for victims of domestic violence, especially if they have an EPO or DVO on file. There should never be a time where you're taking the side of the abuser to say, no, this is church, he can stay or, whatever. He's not going to do anything. I think I shared a video this morning that I did probably back 2016 when I talked about some of the issues that I dealt with in church the after I left the marriage, and with the abuse and the history of abuse and and then there was still a verbal abuse that happens and still happens now. Um, just to kind of say that it doesn't end just because you walk away from the marriage, just because you get out, doesn't mean the abuse stops. There are other ways. Most of them are very manipulative. They like to
Highly.
control the narrative. They want you to see a side of them, so that you're empathetic toward, what you think they may be experiencing, or to their story of the events. And it continues to perpetuate that abuse, especially even, I think I shared that, my kids didn't even understand, like, okay, this is what we saw, and now we see daddy in church acting this way, and people are, so it doesn't, those paradigms, they kind of clash when you
Yeah.
know them outside the situation. So again, like I remember probably 2011, I sat at my desk at work, and I was working across the street from the police station, and there were so many people that were saying so many different things. She's lying, he didn't do this, and he would tell people, and he still tells people to this day that he did not do some of the things that he did. Um, Even so much that he made a post about it a couple of weeks ago. Um, but it triggered something in me, like, okay, am I crazy? Am I making this up? So I went and I ordered all of the transcripts, the 911 call transcripts. I ordered the photos that the police officers took of me, especially when my jaw was dislocated. I ordered all the police reports, because, and then I felt like I had to prove something to people because they did not believe me, and that's a really scary place for victims to be in, where you don't believe them, you don't trust what they're saying, you don't and folks who should be close, family, friends. It's not a good feeling to not be believed in, even when you speak, when you share your experience, and though it helps so many people, there are still so many others who just don't believe you.
It's crazy because you said it's been 11 years, and to this day, the shenanigans continue. And they really do. Sometimes they go quiet
Hmm.
and they mind their business, but they're always watching. Even
Hmm.
when they don't hit you up, they're always watching. The moment they see that your life is going in another direction, and it's,
Hmm.
you're about to experience some type of success. Oh, she thinks she's fancy and got a new relationship. Oh, she's got a new job. Whatever it is, especially when there's children, it's a little complicated because if there's that shared custody. I don't know what your situation is. My children said, no, we know who he is. We saw what he can do, and we want nothing to do with him. And even, even when it's like that serious and the kids are like, this is what we saw, he's like, no, it wasn't like that. You guys, did you forget that she did? And then they were like, hold up, no, they always try to rewrite history.
Um, so they're gosh. So everything is looking back. Um, we had a visitation schedule that has never been followed.
See.
Um, and yeah, it has never been followed. So I've never been, hey, you can't see your father. I've never done that or anything like that. But I do protect my space. So if that means that we go through my mom to exchange the kids up until they were, older now, and now they have their own relationship with their father, they and I let them maintain that in the way they want to do that. But there's never been any set parenting time that has or schedule that has ever been followed, and so they know, I without saying too much, especially now because they're older and on social media and whatever the case may be. So they know a lot. There's, you know, I've always lived by, you don't have to tell them, all the stuff. You don't have to tell them any negative anything. They will see for themselves, and it gives them an opportunity to be someone. It gives their, the other parent an opportunity to do something different. If they decide to change, it gives them an opportunity to do something different. And I still hold out hope that he will, you know, prayerfully become a better person for the children, for our children. And
you know that's a hard one right there, because we do want to see them become better people for their children, whether it's the mother or the father. We want to see them, turn a new leaf and be better, so that the children can at least look back and say, you know what, they tried.
Mhm.
And I think for their hearts, for their souls, it would do them a world of good. But the truth is, these guys really don't change. It's like they just are who they are. They came into agreement with that piece of evil, and that's just who. Hey, you know
Yeah.
it works for them that way. But it's so difficult. But what we see sometimes happen is that people end up, outsiders, third parties, those who are looking in, not worried about the speck in their own eye or the log in their own eye, and they're worried about the speck in yours, saying, well, you can't be of God because you're not praying for this person to change. And maybe if you were submissive, maybe if you would talk kinder, or if you were, all of these maybe coulda, woulda, shouldas that they put on us, well, maybe the woman should have left earlier, and it wouldn't have been this bad. Or if she didn't talk so much, or maybe if you cook, all of the weight of the responsibility is placed on the victim, whether they're male or female, because this goes both ways. That weight is placed on the victim, and it makes it so much harder to begin to go forward, especially within the body of the church, when you're told you need to pray for them. But how do I pray for somebody who I'm still even trying to process forgiveness? Because let's not lie, forgiveness, yeah, we're taught that we must forgive. The Bible says that, and we want to forgive so that we can walk, with a clear conscience. But forgiveness isn't like spontaneous, like, oh, you hit me today and tomorrow I've forgiven you. It's a journey and it's a process. But like, how did you, or how are you coping with that part about, I'm going to, without malice in my heart, I'm going to pray sincerely for this person? Is it even, sometimes it's almost hard when the abuse has been so long term, and everything that you've gone through has been an uphill struggle, that you're praying for your children, you're interceding for your own sanity, and you're trying to keep the roof over your head and everything going. How then do you make, how then do you silence the naysayers that are now using the Bible? They're now using the word of God to hold you captive in this bitter situation, because it's not of God.
So for me, it was all about taking control of my life and not worrying about what anyone else said anymore. And that was a process for me. Journeying from not caring about what folks said about divorce to not caring about what folks said about whether I went through the abuse or not, to what folks said about me as a mother and what I should be doing as a mother, to now, there were even folks who said, you shouldn't go back to school because you're going to miss time with your kids, and, you're a single mom, you can't do this. And so folks will talk regardless of what you do. And so once I got that in my head, I have plowed forward with every area of my life. I have absolutely zero cares about what anyone says about Tiffany Michelle Brown. That's it. I don't
All
care.
right.
I don't care what folks say about me, because at the end of the day, I have to do what I do for me and my children. And a lot of times, folks just focus on their children. They forget about themselves, or they focus on themselves. They forget about their children. I'm doing what I do to focus on me and my children. The, even more, and I'm going to share this. I haven't shared this with, publicly. But even recently, like I said, he made a post. Okay. He made a post and it said, and this, we girlfriends now, so we talking now. So,
Right.
she went through our divorce 2.5 years. The divorce process lasted 2.5 years. I filed for divorce in January of 2000. I left 4th of July, 2009. In my mind, I was giving him time to change. Like, okay, show me something different. I mean, I was giving him time. Nothing happened. And I started to grow. We were still going through domestic violence court, but I did not file for divorce until January of 2010. Our divorce was granted April 2010. We were still going through domestic violence court through that whole period, but it was not our divorce. He said, "Oh, she wanted me to sign over my parental rights and whatever the case may be." I guess I'm just going to just say it out tonight. Never once did I ask him, ask the judge, or anyone to sign over, for anything about anybody's parental rights. However, he expressed to the judge that I was an unfit mother, and so thus ensued a parenting investigation. If anyone knows anything about family law, and I didn't know that at the time, but now I do. This is standard. He said I was an unfit parent. So they did a whole parenting investigation. They asked folks about us. They dug into our backgrounds and all of that stuff. And then what happened after that was I didn't lose custody of the kids because they deemed me as a fit parent. But he was now no longer able to see the children without, he had to have undercover police supervision to visit with the kids.
Isn't it funny that these people, they love to go about digging a grave for you, and they're the only one themselves, they are the ones who stumble and fall into that pit.
Mm-hmm. And he has a lot of resentment, a lot of anger toward me because of that. And it wasn't anything that I asked for. But there are times that he and I have conversations, but once they go past a certain place, I can't, I just can't. But he does. And he's let me know, like, hey, I read that parenting investigation report all the time, and it just, it makes him upset or whatever the case may be. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. But recently on that, so all of that, and he's saying, she gets on these platforms and she's lying about what happened, and people come up to me and ask me, about, me raping her and me beating her and all this stuff. I never touched her, that was such and such many years ago, or whatever the case may be. And she says whatever she has to say, that sells the most, sales stories, or sell,
Oh my
it,
gosh.
its viewers, or whatever the case.
Mhm.
It didn't so much bother me that he posted it. It was the folks that liked it. It was the folks that commented. because again, family, friends. And so, like I said, it doesn't stop just because you've ended the relationship, just because you've come out of the abusive relationship, or what, just because you moved on with your life, you've been successful in other arenas. You know, after leaving him, I, got 3 degrees, and, moved cities, and I feel like I've had, a measure, a nice amount of success. I was able to do some things, and bought my first home, and things like that. But regardless, there are still people who just,
Those are the flying monkeys.
and
That's what they are.
and the thing is, so delete, block, delete, block, delete, block. I don't need, and at this point in my life, I don't need folks who are on the fence. I don't need people that play both sides. I don't need, I just don't need that. I don't need folks, and some of them were people that, you invite me over to your house, and you ask me to, make you a cake or whatever the case. You know what I'm saying? These weren't just anybody. Some of them were close,
Yeah.
and so I just don't need folks like that. And so you continually still have to protect your peace. You have to protect your peace, because I don't know. But if you have a question about whether or not I'm telling the truth, then there's nothing for us to discuss. There's nothing for us to be friends on. Like, that's, mm-mm.
I mean, what is there to say, And they work so hard to control the narrative.
Yeah.
It matters so much to them. And so when we start speaking up and we start sharing our story, I remember when I was writing my first book and I started the promo work, he had everybody pissed off at me, thinking the book was about him. The book was not about what you did to me, okay? Because he always trolled in these lives, but it was never about that. Yeah, troll. It was
Oh,
never about that. It was about, my childhood. But by the time I was ready to publish, I mean, I had been dragged for life.
yeah. And
But what about you?
it's exhausting. This DK person, there was toolbox, including gaslighting, projection, smear campaign, crazy making, isolate, sleep deprivation.
Okay.
Listen, I
And
could,
those are their tools. That sleep deprivation is on purpose to keep you off focused
yeah.
so that we just give in and we don't fuss and we just confused, we late for work, so we're getting write-ups and all types of things to continue to control everything. Oh, okay, we hit one on the nail there.
No, it was even stuff, small stuff like, why are you doing your hair today? Why are you putting on perfume? Why are you taking a bath? I mean, like, seriously, why are you taking a shower?
Yep, because they don't like to.
There were 3 years of our marriage, 2 or 3 years, I can't remember, but it may be 2 or 3, that he did not put his hands on me. But there were other forms of abuse that I could not report. Like, I would go to get my hair done at the hair salon, and he would fill the trash can, like the garbage can in the bathroom, fill it up with water and pour it on top of my head while I'm in the shower. I can't call the police and say my husband threw a bucket of water on me. How crazy does that sound? There were so many, there were so many things that I could not call about. And I, so
And
yes.
they just do anything. Like these creatures. Listen, I decided that these are creatures. I can't see them. I can't see them as normal people, normal functioning people, because they decide to be this way every day. And there is no changing them. A lot of people say, oh, that's a demon, cast it out. You go cast it out. Stop putting that weight on us. If you are bothered that much by me sitting here calling them a raggedy, dusty behind, because that's what they are, then you cast that demon out. That's
Yeah.
your call. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many. I'm going to refrain from that. Um, because I just, I'm at that age. I mean, not at the age, but and you understand this. When your children get older and they're on social media, it's different, and you have to, kind of filter what you say because you never know what they see, and that I think that was the part with what he posted recently that really hit something for me was he's blocked, so I can't see it. I don't see his stuff, whatever is blocked on my phone, so he can't call or text or whatever. Any communication, he deals directly with the children, or he can call, he can call and talk to my mom or whatever the case may be. So I wasn't the first person who saw it. My girls were. So now, they're questioning like, Mom, like what is this? What does this mean? Like what, and they're teenagers. But now they have questions about things that we've never discussed because they're older now. When we divorced, they were like
Babies.
they were babies. They were babies. How do you explain it to your children is what someone else is saying.
Yeah.
Um, the best way that you can is just being honest. It's being honest. Um, when they get to be teenagers, they can understand some things that we may not think they can understand. Um, but I've been very vocal about my journey with overcoming surviving domestic violence. So um, I'm sure they'll come across something one day. I'm sure if I write it in a book or whatever or if I'm talking on the phone, mentoring or coaching someone, I'm sure they may overhear me. So the best way for me to be with them is to be honest. Again, they now have their own point of reference for their father. I don't have to slander him. I don't have to say anything. They have their own point of reference for him. Um, However, my son, he was older, so he saw a lot of the violence. He saw the abuse, and it has affected him in a different way. So that he actually responded to the post, and
Oh,
yeah, social media is a little, you post something and you open yourself up, for folks to either jump on board, jump in your boat and swim with you and pat you on the back and give you a pity party. But then there's some people who gonna call you out, and those folks know you. They know who you are. And I won't go into detail about all that he said, but the last line he said was, I don't see my mother as telling a story about what happened. She's telling our story and empowering and educating other women to get.
it's something when the kid steps up to say something, you know. I've shared it here before because this is our space. This is where we get healing for what we're going through. And a lot of times, in fact, all times when we have a story, it's never for us to just keep to ourselves because other people need it. And so I've shared a lot about what I've been through. And it was a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, the kids and I were just hanging out and we were talking, and their dad started just, with the multiple different phone numbers because he's blocked for a reason from everybody's phone. And this is not that, we pressure the kids to make that choice. Again, they saw what they saw and they came to a conclusion for themselves. And so, my son said, I'm so sick of this man. When I get 18, the moment I turn 18, I'm on a plane to beat him up. And I was like, what, son? And this is after a lot of counseling, it's a lot of therapy. but they still feel, and I talked to his dad about this, like, you've got to back off, and he's like, well, that's my kid and you can't tell me what to do because you're a woman and you can't raise a son. And they start all that gaslighting and projecting onto you again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, well, I was trying to help you go back to minding my own business, and he kept on pushing, and that's where we come. But they never take into consideration how this affects their children. And a lot of people wonder, like, do they love their children? But like, love is none of those things. Love is kind, love is caring, it's patient, it doesn't brag. It's none of what they show their children. And it's painful, as a mom to see this, especially when that's not the experience that we have with our fathers. And so I think sometimes that was one of my issues, is that I chose to stay longer because I thought that, maybe keeping the family unit together, things would get better and they would have a better outcome. That was the worst thing I could have done.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Um, so just a little bit of transparency and honesty. Um, my father had some issues with abuse with my mother. But it wasn't until he saw me being abused that he understood the magnitude of what he did, put my mother through and put us through by, watching. And he suffered with alcoholism and things like that. And I'm not giving him any, um, excuses or anything, but it was always, he a night of drinking and then, he's, violent. He's, in a rage, everything, he's just out of control. And so I saw him, put his hands on my mom, and um, even then, like, cussing was like foreign to me, and cussing was, violence. But that was because I was a child, and we just didn't grow up in a house like that. So, but it wasn't until he saw me being abused that he was like, oh my God, like, he just broke down and cried and apologized to me. And this was the incident when I was pregnant with the twins. And, my jaw was dislocated, and he ended up flying. At the time, he was living in Philadelphia. He flew in, him and his girlfriend, and he was just like, what can I do? I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I feel like this is my fault. You should have seen what you saw growing up. And, he and has really, did a whole 180. So I've seen, folks not be, I've seen both sides of this, where, someone who didn't change and someone who has changed. And I'm glad that I'm glad that I have seen that, because now I know, like, this is not, if someone really wants to change, they can. But it takes a lot of work, and you have to be committed to doing that work. But then there are others that, I don't know. I would say I'm
You
just,
know, what I think is that we have some abusers who are just abusive people,
yeah.
and they put their hands on people. Maybe they're emotionally abusive or financially. But then we have the bigger problem, which is the narcissist, who does the insidious emotional abuse, which is calculated, and
Mm-hmm.
it's plotting and scheming from day one. You meet this person and you think, wow, heaven done smiled on me. I have met the man of my dreams, and it is going to be just perfect, because
No.
there are things that they do to actually hook you.
And
And
I,
so okay, and once that's over, then it's not a relationship, because, like, listen, they knew what they were going to do the whole time. And these people are serial cheaters. They're in fact pathological cheaters. They're pathological victims. They are, I mean, like, when somebody's an obsessive compulsive cheater, that says a lot, because they live double, triple, quadruple lives. I coached somebody a while ago, and we've talked about being able to share this for people's benefit. But he had 16 different lives at the same time he was married to her. And so when you devote so many years of your life to somebody, only to sit back and find out, hold up, I'm one of how many? More than a dozen? Are you kidding me? but it's years of, it's that, it's the manipulation that goes on for years. And so, people say, well, why didn't you leave earlier?
Mm. That's the part.
That
Um,
part.
well, number one, you've been isolated, so you have nowhere to go. Um, I mean, you do in reality have places to go, but in your mind, you have no place else to go. You have no friends. You do in reality, but in your mind, they've told you this
Yep.
person's not your friend. This one's not good for you. Your family don't like you. Whatever the case may be, they hate you. Basically, they are the only person you have. They are your everything, your source
Your
for
God.
and source for money, source of affirmation, source of everything. And so that's when you've been so dependent on them, it's kind of hard to just pick up and leave. You have no resources. Where are you going to go? To a shelter? You're going to take your children to a shelter that you're not going. You're not going to leave. And then you have to deal with the risk of your life trying to leave. The night that I left, there was no physical, altercation. But if I had stepped into my home that night, I know I would not be here. Or I know I would not be here. I know I wouldn't even be this person here today if I had went home that night. He was following me. This man was trying to run off the road. I would not be here if I went home that night.
And
So
that's, yeah.
yeah. I have a
And
friend recently that I had been coaching her for the last couple of years, and we knew each other personally, and um, trying to help her come with a plan to leave. Okay, get the kids out. It's the summertime. Okay, let's take them to grandparents' house. When he ended up killing her, and like as a survivor of domestic violence, and I know I'm not the only one that she, talked to and got advice from and things like that. So I know that, but there that is the most dangerous time in a victim's life is when they're trying to leave. That's when most of them are killed. Is when
right.
they're trying to leave. So we just have to be very sensitive to, unless you're offering them a place to stay, finances, other resources, whatever the case, a safe place, a gun. No, I don't know. But
Listen, hey,
no, seriously, unless you're offering to protect them and put your life on the line, it's best to just kind of keep quiet and let things play out. When they're ready to leave, they will leave. And when they feel it's most safe, because you don't know what's most safe for them. They do. They know what times of the day they can probably get away. They, what season, what days of the week, or whatever the case may be. But you don't know. You don't know the ins and outs. And that's one of the issues that I have with a lot of the practical information that people give out with these organizations, especially domestic violence organizations. Um, they give a lot of practical information that doesn't really work in the real world. If I would try to apply that in the real world, if I had packed a bag and try to hide it or put it in my car, do you think that my car, I mean, like, he wouldn't go in my car and he would have solved that bag? What do you think would have happened? If it was packed in the back of my closet, if it was buried in the backyard, wherever it would be, I'm that's asking for a fight.
it's the truth, it's the truth. And one thing, or one narrative that I can't stand, and I think it needs to change, is when people say, well, they want to talk to us, to the women, or to the victim, even if he's a man, and
Mm-hmm.
say, they want to hold us accountable for what's gone on in the relationship, but ignore the predator. Oh, why do these women stay? Why don't you ask the men why they're putting their hands on us? Why are you doing those things?
Yeah. Women seem to always be responsible for the, success or failure of relationships. And whether it's domestic violence or man cheating or whatever the case may be, it's okay, what did you do? And that's fine. I think we all need to kind of do some assessment and say, okay, even in what I went through with my ex, or not even just him, but all relationships that I've been in, I've always stepped back and say, okay, what take the violence out, but what could I have done differently? And number one thing I could have done differently was not accepting it the first time. You know, but of course, you've been so
Conditioned.
conditioned to accepting violence because of the words that are spoken. Most of the time, it's verbal abuse. That emotional, all of that stuff happens first before hands are even ever laid on you. The foundation is set where you have nobody to talk to, nobody to turn to. You don't have friends. You don't, whatever the case, your family, you've been isolated, and mentally, you're just, your self-esteem is low.
Hmm.
All of that happens first before someone's hands are ever put on you. And that's just how it was. And then we're also conditioned as girls, women, to think that if he puts his hands on me, that means that he likes me.
That's another story right there.
Hmm.
You see so many young girls, and listen, I like to say this whole thing, we in the middle of a pandemic, but we've been in a pandemic before. This is a pandemic. This emotional abuse, domestic, but that is a pandemic on its own,
Yeah.
because these young girls, they see it happening and they feel like, oh, okay, that's how love is demonstrated, because the moment mommy gets beat up and knocked out, then she's getting flowers, then she's getting this good treatment, and then suddenly she's happy, and then things happen again, and so that becomes normal.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And it's not, there's nothing normal about it. And that's, so one of the things I strive to teach my girls, especially, that, you don't have to settle for a man just doing whatever, putting his hands on you, treating you like crap, whatever. Even as they're teenagers, but you'd be surprised how many cues they take from reality TV and from TikTok and social media, and all of that
That
stuff.
TikTok.
Yeah. So you would be surprised. Let me see. Someone says 2 to 3 people willing to train
Oh
self-defense on.
yeah, Karen has got a self-defense class coming up.
Okay. Yeah. I've taken self-defense, and I hope no one takes this the wrong way. I think we need it, but at the same time, um, when you're in these situations, it doesn't really help. And you can tell me, we can talk about we can dialogue about this, Joy. But when you're in domestic violence altercation, yes, it's good to know how to defend yourself and how to protect yourself. But I think really what I was thinking about was staying alive, not going unconscious. When somebody's pulling me out the bed, I'm asleep in the bed, and they come home and pull me out the bed by my ankles, and I'm hitting my head on the dresser. I'm not I'm not thinking about, self-defense moves or what. And even I remember he said, let's where we were staying, there was a lot of home invasions that were happening, and whatever the case may be. And he said, let's why don't you get a gun? And I knew, like, if I were to get a gun,
Oh,
one of us was gonna die.
yeah.
He was either gonna kill me or I was gonna kill him.
When he started telling you to get a gun, I was like, you know what I would say with the self-defense, I think, as as a person is going through that training, one thing that I think is important is that they get some mental preparation for
Yeah.
those moments. Because I remember the very last time my ex-husband put his hands on me, he knocked me down and had his knee on my chest, and he was actually strangling me. So I'm here trying to catch my breath, and I'm thinking I gotta hit him or something. But in my the back of my mind, all I said is, if I fight back, this is gonna get real ugly. And his knee is in my chest, and I can't breathe, and his hands are around me. And
Mm,
the moment I was like, I'm gonna fight back, that's when the kids bust in.
yeah.
That's what they saw. So of course my son jumped on his dad's back and started, doing what little boys would do, and he took off the boy and threw him into the wall and told the kids that didn't happen. It was all made up in their minds.
Yeah. No.
They're the ones who called 911. They
Oh,
saw him go to jail, but it didn't happen at all. And I guess in that moment, I guess I did freeze,
mhm.
because I was like, if I do fight back here, and I know I'm supposed to, I
Mhm.
just knew that the kids are in the next, they're the kids in the house, and I know, right now I may be dying over here, but it's kind of contained. And I know that sounds crazy, but the moment I started to fight back, it would get worse for the kids. I mean, but at the same time, it was just a bad situation, and they already, I think, had known about this. I just didn't know that's where they were, or that they had that awareness. But I think, mentally, for self defense to work mentally, we need to be prepared, and we need to actively practice it.
Yeah.
We need to create environments that are actually real, so that when they do have their hands around you, you're not around your neck, and you're fighting for your breath, you don't panic and freeze, or think that I don't want to make this thing worse. How worse can it be when you can't breathe, when you are dead? Like,
Yeah.
dead is dead.
Yeah.
And so, best self defense is a Glock. And you better be ready to shoot, because I ain't dying. Somebody else is gonna die today, but it won't be me. And I will not cry. I dare
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I think for me, it was just like having that power was kind of scary. The power to take his life, especially in that moment when would have wanted to. I just, I just, how would my kids feel? Just so many things go through your head. How would your kids feel if you killed their father, even though he's killing you? Like, there's
Listen,
so many things that go through your head when you are in the situation. You don't want, you don't want things to get ugly. Especially when they've been ugly. And it's as crazy as it sounds. Um, if you can contain it to the point where you don't have to call the police, and it it sounds crazy, but those are the things that go through our mind. Like, we don't want the police in our business. We don't want, you don't want the police to have to come, and your neighbors are nosy and trying to see what's going on. And then, there's so many aspects of this that folks don't realize. But there were so many things that I had to go back when they did the parenting investigation, and they started asking, folks that are close to us questions and things like that. There were things that I didn't even remember that happened. So I don't know if I just blocked out part of, but my cousins who were there a lot of times, who their names are, they remembered stuff that I didn't even remember.
I think, for our own protection, we somehow get to block some things out, or for our own, healing or whatever. Because if we were to really remember everything, the level of trauma would be something else. It would be a lot.
Yeah.
We have Mike here from Personal Growth Now, who is talking about, and this is a man sharing with us how she struck him, you
Mhm.
know?
It's Yeah, it goes both ways. And I don't condone violence from anyone, whether it be male, female, whatever the case may be. No one should be putting their hands on anyone for any reason. It's not that serious. But you have people who don't know how to control their anger, their rage, um, and their, for some folks, this is just a pattern of abuse that they've witnessed from their parents, and it can be generational. That's how they've always dealt with, their emotions was to lash out through abuse or whatever the case may be. And now, they're doing the same thing. They've picked up those same habits. No, it's no different than, any other um, coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And you also have to think about also what makes us susceptible to the abuse. What is it from our past? What patterns, have we witnessed that make us susceptible to abuse? So for me, it was, you know, my mother not leaving my father. She called herself, giving me, giving my siblings and I, our father, staying married to him longer than she probably should because she's trying to do what's best for our family. And then I, in turn, make that same, choose that same pattern when we had our son. And I'm like, okay, maybe if we get married things will get better. I wanted my family together. I didn't, I wanted us to just to try to make it work for the family. But then I had to realize that I had to break that generational pattern, that generational dysfunction. I
Yeah.
had to break. So while even though there were folks in my family who said, well, you should probably stay because y'all have 5 children together and you're never going to find somebody, who's going to, be a good father to them and, husband for you. And, what it's better than being single and, what's the church going to think and what was everybody else going to think. And even up until the day, I believe that we went to court for the final hearing on the divorce. My great grandmother was like, and she loved me. She was like, y'all can work it out. Y'all just stay together, And she was one of those ones who thought that, you're not gonna find nobody else. And I was okay with not finding anybody else because
Listen.
nobody else was better than being with someone who was going to kill me, being with someone who was going to torture me for the rest of my life. That's what I felt I was going through, was torture. Not just because it wasn't just the physical abuse. It was the words that were spoken. It was the serial cheating. It was all of it. It was the putting on the facade to be in front of folks and acting like everything was fine and it wasn't. Um, it was, and not just at church, at work. There were folks who knew about my husband's affairs at work that I didn't even know. So I'm walking around. I had this huge ring, and they're like, "Oh, who's your husband?" And I would be afraid to say. I would be too embarrassed to say who my husband was
I
because
know.
because he was just that free with himself, and I didn't
Messy.
know. It
Yep.
could have been, and there were several times when I had women call our house saying your husband is with me and whatever the case may be. I think I've shared this with you, but he has a son I'm not a son. He has a child by my cousin that's 6 months younger than our son.
Tiffany, I remember one day being at work, right? And I just started this job. So I just started this job and my phone rang. And it was really weird because I just dropped the phone and I was just like in a panic. I didn't understand why. And I was like, I was just so nervous. Like, something just hit my guts. And
Mhm.
I was like, something wrong with you. You just crazy. So anyway, it went to voicemail and I called it back. And mind you, we were in New Jersey at this time. And here comes the call, the voicemail talking about this is from the DA's office in Corpus Christi, Texas. And I'm like, okay, and we're trying to get in touch with your husband because we need to take a DNA for this baby that was born on this date 4 months before my son. Uh, And you called me. You couldn't find his number? No, because he was dodging and ducking.
They don't
Pathological cheaters.
and the embarrassment. the humiliation, like that, and yeah, I I thank God for healing. I really do. Everybody has their, way of coping and dealing and healing and all of that. And therapy's great. But for me, it's been really like speaking out. One thing I say is your voice is your most powerful gift, and it is. The words that come out of your mouth can be life to you, or they can be death to you. And when I finally got out of that situation, I had a guy friend, and he would say, look at yourself in the mirror. And I could not stand I thought I was just hideous. I thought I was ugly. There were a lot of things about me that I wanted to change. Um, because of that situation and what he told me. And then I had all of these children, and they were all young at the time, and my body wasn't the same as, I don't know, before. And it wasn't even like before, because I had children young. I started have I was 18 when I had my first child. And so it wasn't like before, but it was like I didn't even know who I was outside of this man, because we had been together for I didn't know. I didn't have any identity. All I knew was that I did not like what I saw. And so I just began to speak life into myself with affirmation. And just positive affirmations. You are strong, you are beautiful, you're courageous, you're resilient. You can handle this, you are enough, you're lovable. Just whatever it was, and just began to just like tell myself those things in the mirror. And that is what kind of helped to build my self-esteem up, that even when we're going through court, that he would say all of these negative things about me, and I could stand there and just take it. Um, because you can't act like them. You can't act like them in court. You can't act like them on social media. You can't act like them in public. You just can't, because from the outside looking in, people won't know who the fool is. You, they won't, if we did the tit for tat thing, folks wouldn't know who the fool was. So
But and even if we did do the tit for tat thing, and that's really not our nature, we're not going to go to the level that they are, because these guys are pigs. They love to roll in the mud. And if you go,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't even know,
Yeah, if you go, you rolling in it with them. So I mean, it's like, nope, I'll stand on the sideline, and you do what you do, and let the chips fall where they may. Let our lives speak for themselves, and we'll just leave it at that. I mean, even to the, I hate it, because when there's someone who's waiting for the shoe to, like, the other shoe to drop on your life. When
hmm
someone's waiting for your success to end, when someone's waiting for you to fail, to say, "Ha, I told you so. You
Yep.
did this to me," because that's how they feel. You left them, so now every negative thing that's going on in their life is your fault, because they don't take responsibility for anything.
Yep.
So, oh, you gonna reap what you sow. Like, no, this is
No,
this
you are reaping what
this is
you sowed. Hello. That is
this
your blessing, sir.
this is this is this,
Enjoy.
this is your harvest. This your harvest, sir. Like, so when someone is waiting for that, it's just not a good feeling. And the only thing, like, I forgive him for the the abuse. I forgive him for the trauma. But it's important to me that I don't have to keep forgiving him, that I protect my peace. I stay in my space, and I let him handle what he has to handle on his own. Whatever mental, process that he needs to journey through, whatever, whatever healing that he needs to journey through, that is on him. I'm not responsible for his healing. I'm not responsible for his process. I'm not responsible for his trauma anymore. I'm not responsible for any of it. Where he is where he's supposed to be because he wants to be there. And I have to just leave it at that. It's so that I can stay in a place where I'm at peace with my decision, and I'm not constantly going back and forth about, maybe I can help him, or maybe, or maybe if we had stayed together, things would be different, or what about the children, or what about this and that and the other. Um, I've tried to be cordial, tried to be cordial. Um, Even as recent as last year around the holiday time, um, and it always turns south really bad. And you can probably attest to this. There's there's very little care and concern about developing and maintaining a relationship with the children, and the focus is always on wanting to be back together in the marriage.
They don't want the children. The children are, listen, let's tell the truth here. The children are nothing but a ploy. They're a trap to keep us in these relationships. Let me tell y'all, when I got pregnant with my son, mind you, we had our daughter, I had a miscarriage, and then I was actively making sure that I would not get pregnant. But somehow it happens. Somehow I got pregnant.
Mm.
And I was like,
Yeah, I was
dang.
talking about this.
And now here we have another child, and now it's like we're together forever. So you might as well just go ahead and marry me. Like, really? That's how this proposal is gonna go down? And my, raggedy behind was believing these lies. And that's after all the indoctrination that they take you, all the grooming, all the lies, everything. And on my part, let me be accountable for low self-esteem, for believing he would be the one to fix my earlier trauma. So I was game for all of
Yeah.
it. And here we are. And it's never about the children. They don't do anything about the children. Like, I got money the other day, a few weeks ago, for the first time in the first time. And as soon as the money came through, I didn't stop getting harassed by phone calls. I need to talk to you about what? Suddenly you're paying to talk to me? Why don't you talk to the children? Why don't you, figure out, write them a letter, something, so you
Yeah.
can reconnect with them? Why are you worried about me? Are you seeing anybody? What is that got to do with you? Because you are my wife. No, not anymore. Well, you have my okay, and I'm not the only one with your children. You have a newer one too. So what's up with that?
Yeah. Oh, they don't want to be reminded about that part.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask, and this is, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, because we're talking about relationships and moving on, and the history of violence. Um, but it was a point where my ex started dating a young lady, very, very sweet. She and I still have a relationship, and she still has a relationship with the children to this day. Um, but and they dated for a period of time, and then and she was on it, like I don't know if she was paying the child support for him, possibly, but she was making sure that he would get the kids on, like, every other weekend or something like that at the time. And I have no problem. The more the people that love him, the merrier. But she after a while, and when they broke up, she asked me why didn't I tell her abuse. And so, and I'm going to pose this to you and the viewers, but when is it an appropriate time to have that discussion with your ex's um significant other? Is it ever appropriate?
I don't think it's appropriate for you to go and offer that information,
Mm-hmm.
because when we're dealing with narcissists, they've already told the new thing. the sweet thing, the greener pastures, that you're the problem. They everything that they ever did to you, they're going to tell that person that's what you did to them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, they've already been conditioned to see you one way. Now, I think after my ex got with the lady that he's with right now, some months afterwards, she reached out to me, and she was just like, I don't know what, mind you, let me back up here a bit. She actually knew he was in jail because he was calling her from jail after he did what he did to me, and was making sure he had money and everything was taken care of in jail. But when he whooped her behind, she wanted to talk to me because none of her friends wanted to hear it. And I said, oh no, not today. Only for her to reach out about a month ago. It's less than a month. It's within this, well, it was just within 30 days. She reached out to me and was now, and here's the thing, a lot of the times we see these people go skipping off into the sunset, and we believe that they're happy and wonder, why couldn't you be happy with me? That's what a lot of people still struggle with. And I want to share this, and I think I may have already, just to remind you that they don't go off skipping into the sunset and become better people to their new partners, because she already knew what he did and she was cool with it. And she would be toxic to the point where she would call me while I was actively fasting and praying and, God, fix this marriage. And God saying, child, I told you a long time ago to leave this. And I'm like, but I want you to fix this. But she would call and, she like, oh, well, he said that he's only with you because of the children and all of that toxic stuff. And, blame me for getting pregnant on purpose and all of those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And, time went by, and here she is now calling me not that long ago to ask, what does this mean? Child, he beat her up while she was pregnant. And she was too scared to go and report that. But the worst part about it is she has her own children who are there in the home who witness these things. And so I think when they come to us for advice and to find out, we can be honest, but it doesn't always help, because I was honest the very first time. I don't believe in bashing him, because he is going to deliver each and every time. He is going to be who he is, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. You know, that there's no need for us to tarnish their names. Their names are already trash anyway. It's just a matter of time, because that time is going to expose their true character.
Mm-hmm.
And and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, he's already devalued me, he's already put dirt on me, so let me just show up as who I am. And so I answered her, and I gave her my best advice, and I left it alone.
Yeah.
And then she said, I wish I would have listened to you the first time. And I'm thinking to myself, you didn't listen the first time, you're not about to listen now. What is it going to take? Because in my mind, I'm remembering this guy had his knee in my chest and was strangling me. In my whole heart, this man is going to kill somebody before he leaves this earth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've operated, and not, I don't just divulge that. And then I, and maybe I'm just a very hopeful person that maybe one day they'll change, and and be a better person for somebody else. I don't know, but I'm leaving that up to,
Girl,
leaving it in the air,
the Lord's gonna have to come down and breathe on them,
leaving
literally.
it up to
Go.
God.
Mm,
But that's kind of how, that's the only hope that I have for him and other folks like him, is that that maybe one day they'll change, and for the right person, for the right reason, maybe themselves, I don't know, after they've gotten help or whatever the case. And I don't know, maybe they'll get into therapy and get some help and whatever, and I'm hoping and praying that that's what happens. And I don't ever want to overstep that, so I'm just very cognizant about not, and then if you want to know anything about my past, pretty much, social media. So if you want to know if he was an issue, maybe you should look at social media. Or I think it's always a telltale sign when a mother or when a mother or a father says that they have problems with their child's other parent. That's worth investigating, whether or not there was abuse or whatever the case. Sometimes it could be just a bitter parent or whatever, upset that the relationship didn't work out. But sometimes there are deeper issues behind that, and that needs to be investigated, and you shouldn't just take the person you're in the relationship's word for it. Find out what happened, do some digging,
Yeah.
get a background check, whatever the case, whatever you got to do. Especially in today's age, I will not date someone who has a history of violence.
Yeah.
If you have a history of,
Mhm.
um, there was a guy that we were having conversation, and I was really not interested in dating or anything like that, but he cussed out somebody, and I was just like, oh no. Mm-mm. If you will talk like that, like use that type of language to someone in my presence after I've expressed to you about my past, yeah, we there's no moving past this phase stage anything, because you have no boundaries. um and people might think that it's simple. It's as oh no, I would never put my hands on you. It doesn't start with your hands, it
No.
starts with your words. Uh-oh. It starts with your words. I don't know,
Yeah.
she's
You okay?
yeah, you're frozen.
Oh,
No. Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
if it
yeah,
starts with your words, then I'm sorry. Those
it
words, yeah, you
yeah.
would never talk to me like that. And you would never get the opportunity to talk to me like that.
Yeah, I've been skimming through the comments while we've been here, and not just here on YouTube, but also on Facebook. And there have been people who are sharing their stories, and the traumas and the nightmares that they have experienced. And just to be respectful of everybody's time, because we have kind of a little bit gone over. Um, I want to ask you, Tiffany, like, what advice, what would your parting words be to our viewers, those who have the scars, those who still have the sleepless nights, those who are still trying to just figure out what is the next thing here, what do I do? Those who are just caught up in all of this. But what would be your parting words? And I also did, ask that Tiffany would close us out in prayer, because that's what we do. We like to close out in prayer. And hey, we have the minister in the house today. So,
Um, my parting words is just to forgive yourself first and foremost. Forgive yourself for whether it be the decisions that you've made, that led you to this place. And then decide who it is you want to be. Decide what it is that you like. Decide, what it is that keeps you grounded and connected, and um that keeps you full of hope. I When we have a bad experience like this, we like to shut people out,
mm,
and that's no way to live. Um, do the self work that you need to do. Heal. And more than just healing, but even when we pray tonight, my prayer is that God would restore us back to our hearts, our minds, our emotions, those places that have been scarred, back to how He originally intended and designed for us to use them. Because a lot of times we'll use our experience and now we're jaded for the rest of our lives. And every decision we make is now based on a bad experience. And so that'll be my prayer tonight. So that's what I will. What I would say. And then if you decide that you want to love again, be open to it. Be open to being vulnerable again. Be open to being loved and cared for, and to receiving compassion, receiving those things that you need. Be open to that again. Just because you've had that experience doesn't mean that that's how the rest of your life is supposed to play out. So I'm a very hopeful person. Very,
Yep.
I love, and I just that's those would be my parting words for those tonight. And I don't know if you want to say anything before I pray, or however you want to do this.
No, let me say thank you so much, everybody, for coming through tonight. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for being here, Tanya, Black Divine, Karen, Joseph, everybody in the comments. I can't go through all your names, but thank you so much for showing up tonight and for opening up like you always do, as well as reaching out to each other in the comments. And for those of you that did join us on Facebook, I appreciate you all so much. And we don't take your time for granted. You could have been doing anything else here, but or anything else tonight, but you are here with us. And so before we close out, we're going to end the night in prayer. And so Tiffany, you can take us out.
All right. Father, we thank you tonight for everything that has been said, spoken. God, we ask that you would bring healing and clarity, wisdom to those who are seeking answers, those who are seeking your guidance, your assistance in their love life, and in trying to travel out of domestic violence or violent, abusive relationships. God, we thank you for our lives. We thank you for continuing to be a hedge of protection around us. We thank you for the lives of our loved ones, our children. But even now, God, we just ask that you would restore the joy back into our lives. We ask that you would restore our mental capacity, our emotional capacity, our capacity for relationship, our heart. Restore our hearts, oh God, back to the original intent. Don't just heal us, oh God. We ask, oh God, that even now that you would restore us back to your original intent, oh God. Don't let us make decisions out of a place of pain. Don't let us make decisions out of a place of hurt and bitterness. Oh God, even the root of bitterness, we ask that you pull it up right now in the name of Jesus. Even the root of the hurt and the malice, the things, the tragic and traumatic things that have happened to us. So God, we ask that you would pull those things up in the name of Jesus. Oh God, help us to forget the hurt. Oh God, forget the pain, forget those things. Oh God, but use every experience that we've been through, oh God, to your glory. Let it be a testimony to someone else who needs to be inspired, that needs to see a witness, or needs to see a testament, oh God, that you are able to bring anybody out of any situation, even the most violent of situations, even those near-death experiences, oh God, and help them to see, oh God, that you can restore, that you can heal, that you can mend broken hearts, that you can do the impossible and things that others that would think that can't be done. And so, God, we just thank you for this time. We thank you for this platform. We thank you for those who have watched on tonight. We thank you for even their lives, God. We thank you now for what you're doing in the life of Joy. We thank you for what you're doing in the lives of those who are watching this on YouTube, or on Facebook, and on Periscope, or whatever platform they're viewing this on. Oh God, multiply, oh God, what you're doing in the life of Joy in the name of Jesus. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that prayer, Tiffany. And before I forget, please let everybody know where they can find you.
So I'm changing a lot of my social media stuff to get prepared for launching some new material. And it is, so you can find me on Facebook at Tiffany Michelle Everywhere, and on Instagram at Tiffany Michelle Everywhere. I am on Periscope, but I believe that that and my Twitter are still linked, and that is Tiffany Michelle _. But every place else is Tiffany Michelle Everywhere. Facebook, that's my, professional page, my personality page, Tiffany Michelle everywhere. So we'll be dropping some content soon. Waiting for the Lord to release my next assignment. We just came out of 30 days of prayer for the month of September. And so, yes, just waiting for God to give me my next assignment. I'm sure it will have something to do with prayer.
Yeah.
Um, I thank you so much for this platform and inviting me on. Joy, it's always a pleasure.
I enjoy my time with you a lot. I mean, it goes back years, so it's great to be able to, spend some time with you tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I will see you. I'll see you next week. But tomorrow Tanya is going to be on with North of the Fray, so please join us then. I appreciate you all. Have a great